Yesterday, I released a short of what Donald Trump and Netanyahu said would happen if Hamas does not accept this deal. I'll link that below. This article is from yesterday. Trump says he'll give Hamas 3 or 4 days to agree to a Gaza plan. Now, there's something interesting that just came to my remembrance that I wanted to show you here. Now, I've shown this multiple times before because this is a picture of what the sudden destruction looks like after they say peace and safety. 1 Thessalonians 5:3, directly related to what we're dealing with today. As it was in the days of Noah, so shall it also be in the days of the Son of Man. They did eat, they drank, they married wives, they were given in marriage until the day that Noah entered into the ark and the flood came and destroyed them all. So we're talking about Noah, so let's go back to what God said about Noah. These are the generations of Noah. Noah was a just man and perfect in his generations, and Noah walked with God. You could do a side study on that and find that the reason that Noah was preserved and everyone else was destroyed was that when it says he's perfect in his generations, that's talking about his DNA. So if there's anything that a certain gates of hell is doing, then, he said that he's into gene editing. Make sure that you don't do any of that. Make sure you don't participate with editing your genes. Back to verse 10. Noah begat 3 sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. The earth also was corrupt before God, and the earth was filled with violence. And God looked upon the earth, and behold, it was corrupt, for all flesh had corrupted his way upon the earth. And God said to Noah, The end of all flesh is come before me, for the earth is filled with violence through them, and behold, I will destroy them with the earth. Now, in case you're wondering, this app that you're looking at is called My Sword. It's not available on the Play Store from what I'm aware, but you can download it from the internet. You have to bypass some things within your Android system to get it installed, but I highly recommend this app. So back to Genesis 6:11. The earth also was corrupt before God, and the earth was filled with violence. Let's look at this word violence, H2555. Now, I'm no expert at Hebrew pronunciation, but if you look immediately, right here, Hamas. Violence, wrong, cruelty, injustice. So the entire peace plan right now is hinging on Hamas accepting this deal or get destroyed. If you look lower in the Strong's definition down here, by implication, wrong, damage, false, injustice, oppressor, unrighteous, violence, violent. So, that's what Hamas represents in the Hebrew language. Back in Luke, when it says that it'll be as the days of Lot, as the days of Noah, look here in Genesis 6:5. God saw that the wickedness of man was great in the earth, and that every imagination of the thoughts of his heart was only evil continually. And then the previous verse that I showed you, the earth was filled with violence. Are we seeing that out here in our world? Just senseless violence that seems unprovoked. Now, when it says that it'll be as the days of Lot, most people automatically refer back to the gender confusion that Sodom and Gomorrah had. But Ezekiel 16, I don't know if a lot of people know this, but behold, this was the iniquity of thy sister Sodom. Pride, fullness of bread, abundance of idleness was in her and in her daughters. Neither did she strengthen the hand of the poor and the needy. They were haughty and committed abomination before me. Therefore I took them away as I saw good. Neither has Samaria committed half of thy sins, but thou hast multiplied thy abominations more than they, and hast justified thy sisters in all thine abominations which thou hast done. So, we got a whole lot more going on than just, a crowd of men saying to the angels, bring them out that we may know them. It's the same know that was in Genesis when Adam and Eve knew each other and had Cain and Abel. So it's a certain kind of knowing, right? So I just find it interesting that we live in a generation where these things are looked upon very lightly. All the things that are mentioned in the time of Lot, all the things mentioned in the time of Noah, you know, evil called good, good called evil. And even going to church, you know, most churches have such a safe, comfortable message that no one would ever be convicted of their lifestyle there. If you're going to a church that is just a, you know, sell you some coffee, sing you a song, and then not be confrontational about sin at all, I'm not saying that, you know, there needs to be hellfire and brimstone sermons full of condemnation. But if there isn't some sort of change in your walk, if there isn't some sort of conviction in your heart, then something's wrong. I can tell you from my own personal experience that I was in the Army for 8 years. I had a alcohol addiction for nearly 10. I was doing all the things that I was told not to do when I was younger. And then God confronted me and told me that, you know, if I hadn't saved you out of Iraq, you'd be in hell. The Lord spared my life. That's, you know, it's throughout my videos if you haven't heard it. But when the Lord confronted me with that, there was a change in my heart. When you become born again, there's a change, not just an agreement with the story, not just an agreement with okay, I believe with what Jesus said, but there is a response to conviction. There is a renewing of the mind. You know, I understand that salvation is grace through faith, not of works, lest any man should boast, but we should go on to maturity, shouldn't we? We should be a light to others. We should be sharing the gospel and, you know, living in a way that we look separate, that we look holy, that we look set apart, that we're not like every other person. You know, why would anybody want to come to church if we look just like everybody else looks? So, you know, back to the original idea. Hamas, the earth being filled with violence. You know, the entire peace plan, which I believe points directly to Daniel 9:27. Isn't it interesting that, you know, it's such a literal translation that, you know, the peace with the world is blocked by violence. You know, and I'm kind of separating the ideas and the prophecy. I do believe that the prophecy is going to lead to, you know, end times and the opening of the book of the Revelation, that you will see these prophecies come to pass if you're not prepared to come along. But, you know, we should have a desire to be like Jesus. Paul said, imitate me as I imitate Christ. So I just want you to know that as we're looking for the rapture, as we're looking for the 70th week of Daniel, respond to conviction. Have a clear conscience before God and man, like Paul said. And, you know, make sure that you have more than just a church attendance and a mental agreement. You know, Jesus has to be Lord of your life, and you should be becoming like him, showing evidence that you're born again.